to The Truth in This Art. I am your host, Rob Lee, and today I'm privileged to be in conversation with the chef and owner of the Alfred Restaurant Group. They've earned acclaim from Duck Duck Goose Baltimore and Duck Duck Goose Bethesda. They were named Maryland Chef of the Year 2019 by the Maryland Restaurant Association, a prestigious award that recognizes overall excellence in the food service industry and dedication to the community. Please welcome Chef Ashish Alfred. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm grateful to be here. At long last, indeed. I think we've been kicking this back and forth for a little while now. It's been amazing to watch your show grow a little bit, and I'm glad to be a guest here. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. And, I got to say, like, I've been to several of the restaurants that are under the group or what have you. And it's kind of my date night spot. It's one of those things. I like to look impressive. Now, granted, it was one time, the first time I went to Duck Duck Goose in Baltimore, the escargot went flying because I'm unfamiliar with it. It bounced off my tit, and I was like, what's going on here? I was like, I'm gonna pick that up and I'm gonna eat that, but nobody judged me. Nobody judged what I just did.
That's a bad look on a date.
She's been with me for a while. She knows what it is. She was like, you're gonna eat that, aren't you? So before I get too deep and embarrass myself further, I want to get the story, what is, and I know that you've probably mentioned this on more than one occasion. So if you want to omit or modify however you would like to do it, but what is the Chef Al story? And in it, could you talk about maybe your fascination with food and your decision to pursue food?
Sure. The Chef Al story is, I got started in hospitality. I'll say not necessarily wanting to cook, but I got started in hospitality as a way to get out of school. I didn't like school. And the first chance I got to sign on to, we called it on-the-job training when I was in high school, where you went to school for half the day and then you found a job for the other half of the day, a certain number of hours in the week. It was at a place right around the corner from my house, little neighborhood Italian place, and I got a job as a host. It was my first taste of like the hustle and bustle of restaurants, and I enjoyed it. After a while, I think that the hours just weren't working for me, and I needed something else, and I think I just wanted to make more money too. So I found my next job at a Starbucks. So I walked into a Starbucks, and I thought the barista was the coolest guy in the world. It was back when Starbucks was still a real coffee shop where they would pull the shots in front of you, and they had to pay attention to what they were doing. Not like today where they just hit a button for macchiato and hit a button for this and hit a button for that. And, this computer with two steam ones on it just does all the work. I loved it. I loved the camaraderie that I could see was there already, amongst the different baristas and the people that were in that space. And, it was a group of oddballs, and I thought, I could get down with that. Got my next job, worked through a couple different bars. I was a bar back. I, caught a gig working the door in a couple places. Kind of worked my way through hospitality, realized that, the best place for me to be was maybe not out in front where all the alcohol was, and to put myself maybe in the back. So with no real passion for cooking other than all these Food Network, whatever I had been watching, I was like, well, I've flunked out of college a couple times. I need an excuse to get, to put some sort of piece of paper in my pants or under my belt that I can convince my parents that I know how to do something. So I said, okay, well, I'll go to culinary school. So I needed an excuse to go to New York City. So I found culinary school, and I was like, look, the guy on TV, Bobby Flay has been there, and Giada De Laurentiis has been there, and my parents go, all right, fine, whatever. You know what I mean? It's something, he seems excited about it right now, so we'll get him up there. So I get up there, not knowing anything about cooking, but knowing how to hustle. I'd learned how to hustle working in bars and restaurants, and even back as a little barista at Starbucks when I was a kid, and that did well for me. The oddballs, the kind of the violent pressure that comes with being in it, all that was very, very familiar to me. So where kids were, I say kids, I mean, we were 21 at the time, but, where kids were crapping out because they didn't like how the instructor yelled at them. And I was like, yo, you've never met my parents. Like, this is cool. Like, you can yell at me all day long, throw something at me. I don't care. I'm good. And I kind of fit in. Like, I knew how to move my body. I knew how to stay out of the way. I knew how to, I could withstand the heat. It came to me. I wouldn't say that I was gifted for cooking, but like the idea of being in a tense, somewhat violent, irrational environment just came to me very easily. So I ended up, despite all odds, I did pretty well. I stayed in New York for a while, behaved very badly for a while, and then mom decided it was time for me to come back home. So I came back home and, I had this culinary diploma and all kinds of ego and didn't really know shit. But had my mom convinced that I could run this huge behemoth of a restaurant in downtown Bethesda, which, where I'm from is a pretty competitive restaurant market, and very expensive. So ran that into the ground. Ran myself into the ground, made some life changes, came back stronger. And with $50,000 in a prayer, I opened my first Duck Goose. And it's, kind of been a bumpy fairy tale, we'll say that. But it's been a fairy tale ever since. We still work very hard. We are up to 3 Duck Geese now. There's 1 No Way Rosé. We just opened an Anchor Bar. We're getting ready to open Osteria Parata. The cooking in all the spaces is soulful, familiar, something, I try to say that we have something for everyone in every restaurant. Yeah. So that is the Chef Al story. I'm a hospitality guy with a culinary diploma.
I love it. I love it. And definitely want to talk to you a little bit about hospitality, because that has become a bigger part of the conversation when it comes to where people are going to invest their time, their money, their energy when they're going out. I think, 2020 has led to that sort of shift or what have you, and we've looked at things differently. So I would definitely love to get your take on that, from your vantage point. But before I move past this sort of like introductory chunk, I want to throw this question out there to you. I want to get your take on it. So I read that Baltimore, since that's where I would have gone to your place, both No Way Rosé and Dr. Goose. I read that Baltimore isn't a chef city, but more of a restaurant city, and it feels like it's shifting, maybe like other cities like New York or what have you, and other places. And I see that we were part of the Visit Baltimore sort of like rebrand for 2020. Like, how do you see that landscape like evolving further in Baltimore and in DMV? Is it more, I want to go to this sort of restaurant group, or am I following this chef, this sort of cuisine? What is your take on the sort of like climate of the restaurant industry in terms of chefs versus restaurants?
I think it's a really stupid statement. I think that behind every restaurant is a chef. Whether you like, if you like the restaurant, it's because, there's a chef working really hard back there. Yeah. I think that, are there as many, independently, chef driven restaurants in Baltimore? No. And we can talk about why that is at length, I think, but I think the simple answer is, Baltimore is a risky bet. And it has been for some time. The barriers to entry are relatively low. I mean, it's still you can still get leases pretty reasonably in Baltimore, but it's a prevalent question. Is Baltimore going to break into riot, tomorrow? Is what's going to happen with the government there? Where are my clients going to park, where they're not going to be accosted by the less fortunate, and I think it's happening in a lot of cities. I think it's just at its forefront in Baltimore a little bit. It's Yeah, I think, even with that statement, man, there's some great chefs in Baltimore that have been doing it there for a long, long time. You got guys like Chad Gauss. You got guys like, you got, I'm sorry, not guys. You got, Cindy, who's been there for a long time.
Yeah.
You've got, what's his name? The Eki guy.
Yeah.
His name's on the tip of my tongue.
Steve.
Steve Chu, puts out a great product. I even some of the Atlas guys, Julia Marucci over at Tagliata, some of the best pasta I've had. And I've had pasta from New York up to Boston and out to the West Coast.
Yeah.
There's some really great chefs. A new guy, he's cooking at Watersong in Fed Hill. Some of the most authentic food I've had, and really, really, really hardworking guy behind that stove. So I think I don't know if that's a smart statement. It's chefs that make it's, everybody working in a restaurant makes a restaurant great, right? But there's a lot of chefs that are very well invested. The guy at Poppy's Cuisine, not my favorite kind of food, but the guy's working it, and he's got a line out the door every Saturday and Sunday. He's turning 600 covers Saturday and Sunday. You want to tell me it's not a chef-driven restaurant? I mean, I think, there's a lot of chefs putting in a lot of hard work and kind of dealing with some of the, pardon my French, but some of the bullshit that comes with Baltimore, because they believe in Baltimore. They want to see Baltimore be a better place.
Yeah, it's fair. Yeah. So I want to talk to you a little bit about like developing the menu. You have, a slew of different restaurants, and you kind of touched on it earlier, where there's something for everyone. There's something that you'll find within that whole sort of like roster of restaurants. So talk to me about the process of developing a menu, building out a menu. Like, what goes into that? What is the development process?
I think, for us, we have a brand now. So it's, when I started my first Duck Duck Goose, a lot of it was, what do I want to cook? Now, with me on the stove, with me here every day, what do I want to cook every day? What do I want to do? Like, how do I want to kind of like flex my creative muscle a little bit? But I think that now I have a responsibility to, about 200 some odd employees. So it's not just me anymore. So for me, I have to, my menu development, the things that I do have to be consistent with what my clientele expects from me when they come in. You come into Duck Duck Goose and I tell you I've got a Thai noodle salad on the menu. You might try it because it's a novel idea, but it's not why somebody who might be coming to Duck Duck Goose for the first time is coming in. So we try to change our menus seasonally. Try to do things that we think are relevant, things that are kind of in keeping with trends culinarily. But part of the reason I love French food so much is you can't beat a classic. I mean, your head turns the exact same way. You see a 67 Camaro roll down the street, or you see a 2006 Ferrari roll down the street. You know what I mean? I'm sorry, a 2022 Ferrari roll down the street. You feel the same way. You're going to stop and stare both times. Right. So for me, we do slightly modern renditions of the classics, but we try to keep it within the parameters of what people expect when they walk into a French brasserie.
I like that. Yeah. Like, like I said, I've been to two of the places, and it's a great experience. And yeah, I kind of came to this sort of, understanding and almost expectation. And then I remember speaking with you a little bit about a really, really decadent bread pudding that was at Duck Duck Goose. And I was like, okay, yeah, this is what I'm here for. This is what I'm here for.
I mean, it's think about it. What's bread pudding? It's croissants. Croissants are what? Butter. And we drown the whole thing in caramel. And then we top that off with like a creme anglaise. I mean, it's just cream on butter, on sugar, on it's what everybody craves after eating a heavy meal.
Yeah.
It's funny. I had this one kid, he came in and he chefed for me for a little while. And obviously I'm not going to say his name, but he was a real gem. I'm rolling my eyes. You can't tell, but real gem. And he came to me in, it was like springtime. It was like May or something like that. And gave me a hard time about the French onion soup that was on the menu. I'm not a moron. I understand that it's 90 degrees outside. Yeah. But when people walk into the place and if they want French onion soup, what am I going to tell them? No.
Yeah.
They have an expectation, and how big of an ego do I have that I'm going to say no, it's the springtime, you have to eat gazpacho. No, I'm just going to go to the next guy that's got fucking French onion soup that isn't full of his own ego.
No, I dig that. I dig that, and I think like food guys, like people that are in that sort of industry, have a certain intensity that goes along with, and a certain, like, this is how this is going to work. And especially when it's your place, like, this is how this works. So
Yeah.
let's work within that system.
Yeah. And obviously, I have not gotten where we haven't gotten here by my brain alone, right? Like, obviously it has been collaborative at many turns of the road. I do pick up the phone and pick up the phone, have a meeting, have a conversation, whatever. But at the end of the day, the client comes first.
Yeah.
And the team comes first. So whatever's best for the common good is what we decide to do. It's not, these restaurants don't run off of, my best thinking alone.
Yeah, and I think a big piece of it is passion or what have you. And I've spoken with a fair amount of chefs, because I kind of look up to chefs or what have you. It's a certain type of personality that needs to be there for that situation to succeed. There are extremes of it, but there has to be a certain personality type to succeed. And looking over your background and your history, it's a lot of things in here. Baltimore Business Journal, top 40 under 40, Maryland Chef of the Year, things of that nature. Looking back, like, what are some of those career highlights for you? Like, what do you hold at a higher prestige?
People give me, first of all, I should say I'm really grateful for every single one of those accolades that I've gotten. And every single one of those accolades that I've gotten is because of the dishwashers and the porters and the food runners and the bussers and the waiters and the waitresses and the managers and all those other people that come into play, right? Those are the people that make those things happen. For me, I have an idea when it comes to Duck Duck Goose. That idea takes people to bring to life, and it's the people that bring those ideas to life every day, relentlessly. Lunch, dinner, breakfast, lunch, and dinner in some of the places, brunch on weekends. Those are the people that make those things happen. So while I'm happy to be the recipient of the physical piece of whatever that is, really all credit goes to, I think, God first, and second, the people that have stood by my side every step of the way. To answer your question, though, what has stood out the most to me, I get a lot of flack because I don't hang any of these awards in the restaurants. Nothing against the chefs that do, right? Nothing against the chefs that do. But I don't, because I was whatever somebody gave me that award for that day, I was that good that day.
Sure.
I'm not necessarily that good today. So this is not a business where you can rest on your laurels. It's like, a lot of the old restaurants in Little Italy. They've got their awards on the wall from 1992. The guy making the lasagna in 1992 ain't the same guy making it right now.
Right.
So for me, I think the biggest, for me, what that did for me, or a couple of those reviews that I got was, okay, earn it. You got it, now earn it.
Yeah.
Now earn it every day. You got it. So you've set the expectation, right? So you've set this expectation for the world to have when they come into your restaurants. Now earn it every day, and surround yourself with people that are going to earn that every fucking day.
That sounds like Aquarius energy, I feel, but maybe I'm wrong.
No, you're dead on.
No,
January 26th.
January 20th for me. I feel the same way when I did the whole Best of Baltimore thing, and it's like, oh yeah, we love it, we're so happy for you. I was like, yeah, I kind of got to keep it's pressure more than something to rest on. And when those different things come up, it's like, yo, you're at 400 plus episodes, when are you going to celebrate? It's like, I just got to keep doing it. Like, do I see progression? Am I impressing myself? How do I feel about it? And really being counter to what people think you should be doing. It's like, man, you should be celebrating, man. Pop some bottles. Nah, got to just keep doing my thing. Because inevitably there's going to be that one interview that I'm looking forward to, and I'm like more than your average one, and then I just bomb it. And I was like, yep, back to normal. Back to the normal guy I was. Yeah.
100%. And I mean, like, if your best efforts, right? If you hustling and you grinding and you doing your thing, if that gets you here, right? Like, let's say your next interview is, I don't know, who's somebody that you hold in high regard? Who is somebody that you love to interview? Obviously, more than me.
Questlove.
All right. So you get Questlove tomorrow, right? So you've reached the pinnacle of who you want to interview. Man, all this hustle and all this work got you to Questlove.
Yeah.
Who do you get next?
This is true.
Like the same amount of work, right? Who do you get next?
Yeah. And I was talking with someone about this recently. I was like, I had this idea that, oh, it'll get easier once you get to a certain level. It's like, no, 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 no. You're identifying with it in the wrong way. It's just going to be
No.
harder because now
Yep.
you have that pressure on yourself in the back of your head that secretly it's like, you're good, but also you want to be right too, to say, oh, okay, maybe I'm not as good as I think I am. You want to be
Yep.
right while still doing the work.
Yep. And the expectation is different too. I think once you reach a certain level, once you level up, you're expected to have leveled up.
So I got two more. Well, this one has got multiple parts. So I want to, and I think you touched on this a bit, but I really want to like hammer this point home in this multi-part question. So describe your overall like cooking and hospitality philosophy or what have you. And I think we got pieces of it. So maybe let's focus in the hospitality component of it. Cause you're a hospitality guy with the food, sir, and the food like degree or what have you. So let's talk about that a little bit.
I mean, I think put simply, hospitality is the way that you make people feel. We ask this question in every like management level interview that I do. I ask this question. I say, what's the difference between service and hospitality? So when somebody tells you they go into a good restaurant, they got great service, is that the same as them telling you that they got great hospitality? And the answer is no. Great service means I brought you a steak knife for your steak. Great service means I brought you, a side of mayo because you asked for it. Hospitality is the way I make you feel. And I think hospitality starts before the clients even walk in the building. Hospitality starts by the bathrooms being clean, the lights being turned down just right, the staff having family meal together, feeling good about one another, because when they feel good about one another, then they're going to feel really good about the clients coming through the door. And I use the word client deliberately. A lot of people say customer or guest, and it's been kind of something I've been pushing in my business. Guys, there are clients, there are clients, there are clients. A customer is a very transactional thing, right? You come in as my customer. I could be at a 7-Eleven. I could be at a dollar store. I could be at a Target. I could be at whatever, right? You're going to come in, you're going to hand me a certain amount of money for a good or service. And it's very transactional. Yeah. For me, I say client because client is somebody that you develop a relationship with, and the success of your relationship is predicated on what they give you and what you give them. It's like if you have an accountant, you're that accountant's client, because that accountant's going to take the information that you give them, work those numbers the best way he can, and give you the best result back. So it's a collaborative effort. Sure. I believe that the happiest clients that we have are the ones that know how to have that collaboration with their server, with their bartender.
Yeah. And it's more than it's the experience component that's in there. I think, you touched on it earlier, like, how does a person feel? Like, yeah. When I go to a place, I want to feel like taken care of. And I can say that in both Duck Duck Goose and both No Way Rosé. Like, No Way Rosé was one of those, when are we going to go? When are we going to go? And I was like, all right, surprise, we're going, let's make it happen. And just going there and, from my vantage point, I'm looked at as the guy of who's like, where does Rob say we should go? Because I already vetted these things in that way. And I've sent multiple people to No Way Rosé and Duck Duck Goose just based off the strength of I had a great experience there. And it's not like, oh, I had some great food there. I could just, go to a place. It's like, I'm going to eat. I'm going to stay there for as long enough there is to eat and then keep it moving. And it may not be a return thing. There's many places that I've gone that have great food, but I don't feel anything. I don't have that lasting sort of effect. And I think when it's that sort of feeling, my thinking and how I kind of distribute my money is I need to go back there and show them some love. It's not I need to go back there and have a steak. Is I need to go back there and show some love. I need to do my nice gratuity, like especially at this part of the year, this fourth quarter, gratuity is at 25-30% minimum. That's where it's at this point, because to your point, I think it's a relationship, especially if I go to a place and they're like, hey, I remembered you. You're the guy that had, this weird vermouth drink. Yeah, I am. Mm-hmm. Let's make it happen.
Mm-hmm. 100%. And it's about, and if the hospitality is good, right? Like if you walk into a place and they make you feel loved, and obviously not every place is going to do this, right? Like for, some of like the more fast casual places, they're not going to do this, but even still, like the small touches will be there. They'll make you feel welcome. That somebody's not sitting there on their cell phone saying, "Hey, yeah, what can I get you? Go ahead and put in your order." They're saying, "Hi, how are you? Come on in. What can I order? What can I get for you?" Like, hey, you ask them a couple questions about the menu. They know what they're talking about when they're answering you. That's what hospitality is. It's a feeling of like, hey, you're safe here. You're safe to spend your money here. If you don't like if you don't love what we have to give you, we're probably going to take the step to make it right.
Yeah. Yeah. So talk about in because you've been doing it for a while and been successful and have various places that you're like the face behind and such. Tell me about the feeling that you have when there's like a huge service. Like, what is that sort of anticipation? Is it, I'm about to run through the tunnel and, tackle someone on, in Raven Stadium? What is that feeling, right before service, like that anticipatory feeling?
When I know that we're walking into a very busy service, I just sounds stupid, but I try to be really calm. I mean, there's usually like a 5-minute, hey, is this where it needs to be? Is that where it needs to be? But I get it all out of my system pretty quickly. Like if all my aces are in places and all my mise en place is done and if I've put in all the work, it's like when you go to a race, right? Like it's called an Indy race, a NASCAR race, whatever.
Sure.
Once the checkered flag drops, it drops. You can sit there and shit your pants for the next 500 miles. Or you can just accept that it's going to be what it's going to be, and you put in all the work that you needed to put in to get to the best point possible. So for me, I think, going into service is just a very calm realization that, hey, like chef doesn't just mean guy that can cook. Chef means boss. Chef means kind of guiding light. Chef means, hey, I'm a server. I got sat 3 times in a row within 2 minutes of each other. I'm trying to struggle to get these orders in and get their drinks out and do whatever. I'm the guy in the back that's going to be like, hey, take a breath. I got you. Don't worry about it. Yep. Bring in your food. If you have to make a couple mistakes, whatever, it's cool. I'm going to get you through it. Chef is the guy that, hey, chef, I'm running low on some of my prep. What are we going to do? How are we going to get through it? All right, give me 2 minutes. Let me run downstairs for you. You stay on the line. I'm going to bang some more out for you. Bring it up to you so that you have a little bit extra in the hole. So you're ready to go and you're not too far behind.
I love that. My understanding is that, at times restaurants are working on razor thin margins. With that in mind, describe some of those like decisions you make in consideration of sort of those margins, because that's my understanding. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just everything is moving great. There's no problems. But with those thinner margins, especially with inflation and all of that stuff that's been going on, what are some of those decisions that you make in terms of maybe menu, in terms of maybe mostly menu, I guess, that the considerations for you when it comes to some of these thinner margins and inflation and the things of the like?
It really affects what you're able to do, in the sense that, there's razor thin margins on things like scallops. There's razor thin margins on things like foie gras. Mm-hmm. And you have to make the decision like, hey, am I going to take the beating on this? Like, am I going to maybe not even break even on a couple of these food items, but make sure that I have them on my menu so that I can offer it to my clients. Hey, I could really use another food runner on my floor to make sure things are super smooth tonight, but I don't know that I'm going to make enough to cover that amount of labor. Mm. Times are harder now than they have ever been. And I'm glad you asked the question, because I think it's important to paint the right picture. Times are harder now than they've ever been, for small business owners in general, I think, but specifically, restaurant owners. The margins are getting, butter is almost twice as much as it used to cost. Wow. I'm in a French restaurant. You think that doesn't affect me?
Yes. A lot of the things you mentioned are expensive.
We're having 100%. And, having to, it's a difficult juxtaposition, right? Because you're having to, one, charge a lot more for the same products because you're paying a lot more, but also then you have to somehow compensate for that perception of value. That same piece of chicken that costed and I'm using chicken just as an example, but that same piece of chicken that costed somebody $21 is now in a lot of places costing people $30.
Yeah.
Now, to the lay person, to the lay client, they don't know why it's costing $9 more. They might not even keep track of the fact that it's gone up $1, $1. They just know that they're paying $30 for a piece of chicken.
Right.
So, everything else has to fall in order. So it becomes really hard to not have that extra food runner, to not have that extra busser. Those things, it becomes really hard to justify not having those people. But man, I got to charge what I got to charge for the food, and I can only afford to have on the people that I can have on.
I remember seeing like just that analysis. Like I said, I talk with chefs. I envy what you guys do, and I might have a butcher's block here. I might have a chef knife, a little cast iron. I'm trying to do my thing in the crib, and and I would talk to folks about so olive oil. I see that's gone up like a lot, and you touched on butter. Geez, different things that they don't show up. Like you mentioned chicken right now, and understand that was an example, but some of the things that go into making the actual dish have gone up considerably, and that's not even a line item on the menu. Like I'm not going into like duck goose saying let me get some olive oil, but there's olive oil that goes in that dish, so it's going to increase the cost of what that might look like at the end of the day and what that bottom line is.
100%. And everything's gone up, and everything's gone up. Trash bags, I can't even, I haven't counted in a long time, but I have to imagine that one of my restaurants on any given night probably goes through about 25 trash bags. I mean, trash bags have gone up, gloves have gone up, you name it. I mean, the cost of utilities has gone up, everything has gone up, and I'm not crying poor. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm not crying poor, but it is a very it's a tough world out there for restaurants right now. Really, really tough. And the bigger corporate places have it a little bit better. They can write off losses, they can write off debt, they can do things like that. And good for them, right? I mean, I'm not knocking capitalism, but for the smaller guys, it's becoming really tough. And it's also becoming really tough to establish themselves as a smaller independent restaurants. You're struggling just to get your feet under you. How then do you also afford somebody to manage your social media? How then do you also afford somebody to manage your PR? Because nowadays, especially in the bigger markets, if you're not paying good money for good PR, guess what? Nobody's writing about your restaurant. It's that simple.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is the last real question. And this is kind of this sort of summation. You've got a strong roster of restaurants, what have you. I did my version of a chef kiss for those who cannot see what I'm doing. How do you successfully oversee like these ventures? It's a lot, and you're one person sort of in this, kind of like executive chef owner role, and you have like a strong team, I would imagine, behind you and bringing in the good people. But tell me how you oversee like these ventures.
I try to do so as objectively and unemotionally as possible. When I remove myself and my ego from the equation, none of the problems are really that bad. And I think the second part of that answer is I try every day to surround myself with people that I would not mind one day owning a business with. I have yet to find some of those people. I already have some of those people, but it's a constant. Yes, today there are 4 restaurants. A year and a half ago, there was 2 restaurants. And that growth exponentially, I'm trying every day to like put the right team in place. Because like I said, an idea doesn't grow a business, people grow a business. Sure. And it takes time to find the right people. You don't need 100 people to really go out and crush it. Yeah. You need 5 or 6. You need 5 or 6 really committed people that are bought in, that want to do a good job for more than just a paycheck, that want to go the extra mile. However many days they're at work, they want each day to be better than the day before, not just for themselves, but for the entire company. That's
great. And thank you for that. I really think this has been insightful and eye-opening. So shout out to you. So I got three. You're welcome. I got three rapid fire questions for you. And as I say, and this is going to be a challenge because we're in the same tribe, overthinking. Oh, don't overthink. Don't do that. I'm getting chills because some of the things that you describe from your vantage point is really how I view podcasting sometimes. It's like, oh, yeah, I want to have the right people around me. Also, make sure put my ego to the side a little bit. All right. So don't overthink them. This brevity is key here. What do you consider to be your signature dish?
Beef Wellington.
So you give me things to look into, man. If this is ridiculous, if an executive chef is the quarterback of the kitchen, who is the kicker?
The general manager.
It just have to make the field goals, just make the things you're supposed to make. And lastly, you touched on this a little bit, and I think I saw something in your background about this. Currently, of the things that exist, what cooking show would you like to be on?
Man, there's so many.
I know, right? And I watched Food Network cooking shows whenever I travel. That's all I'm watching.
Somebody Feed Phil. Is that a cooking show or is that just like an eating show?
It's an eating and travel show, and I really like that show. That's a good one, actually.
I mean, that guy just seems like a ball of joy. Like, he's so happy. And, he's eating like some fancy food, and sometimes he's just eating a hot dog. And the guy is just happy to be out in the world and meeting people. There's no airs about him. He looks like a total doofus, but he is such a sweetheart of a man, loves his parents, loves meeting people. Yeah, somebody feed Phil. I would love to just go eating with Phil one day.
I would as well. I agree with that. I'm on the same page. And with that, I think that's where we wrap. So I want to thank you for coming on to this podcast and chopping it up with me. And
thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. And I want to invite and encourage you to tell the listeners where to check you out, where to check out social media, website, all of that good stuff, and where to get that beef Wellington.
It's not on the menu. It's something that I do for special occasions. I do it for special occasions. But you can find me at Duck Duck Goose in DuPont Circle, Bethesda, Fells Point. You can find me at No Way Rosé in Federal Hill. I am online on Instagram at Chef Ashish Alfred. Where else am I? There's a bunch of Instagram handles. You can find me online at the AlfredRestaurantGroup.com. I think it's just actually AlfredRestaurantGroup.com.
Thank you. And there you have it, folks. So I want to again thank Chef Ashish Alfred, for coming onto the podcast and sharing his story with me. And I'm Rob Lee, saying that there's art, food, community in and around Baltimore. You just got to look for it.